Joining us now for a one-on-one interview is Ben Goodwin. Ben is the CEO, co-founder, and the formulator at Olipop. Ben, thanks a lot for being here. Good to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, JD.
So before we get into it, can you tell us what a formulator actually is? Because that's a really cool part of your job, I feel like.
No, it is, and it's very, very unique. I mean, most of the time, beverage companies work with external flavor houses. I've been a product formulator actually for 20 years. I'm a college dropout that got right into beverage at a young age, and I found early on I had a knack and an interest in the formula, in the flavor chemistry. So that's been a part of my journey. What's amazing about that is I get to take 100% responsibility for what's in our products that we use. If I need to tweak something, it's really easy for me to do it directly because I know everything that's in there. And actually, it's one of the things I love about it as I've gained more and more skill over time is I feel like it's the most direct relationship I have with our customers. So everything I do because of my role, I have to be somewhat mindful, somewhat strategic, and formulating the products is it's like I'm creating a piece of music or something. It's as direct as anything I get to do. And so it's a very, very cherished part of my role for me.
Ben, no doubt all of our viewers are familiar with Olipop, but I don't know how many people know the inspiration, the genesis. Can you take us back to those early days and talk to us a bit about the evolution? How did it go from those early days to where the brand is today?
Yeah, look, it stretches. This has been a lifelong path in certain ways for me. And look, the simple reality is, so I've been a beverage entrepreneur for about 20 years now, just under. And it feels like an overnight success, but it is, in certain ways, it's the 20-year overnight success. That being said, only 0.4% of beverage brands even make it to $10 million in revenue. So you could be a beverage entrepreneur for 100 years and still not actually get to where we were. We're extraordinarily lucky. I mean, for me, I grew up eating a standard American diet. I grew up, fairly low income, so plenty of soda and fast food, which didn't work out great. I kind of had my own health epiphany as a teenager and went on a healthier path. And then as I became an adult and an entrepreneur, that's something I wanted to give back to the world. I've always felt attracted to beverage, and so I've just gone through multiple iterations over time. But that on a really simple level, my goal is just to make health as accessible as possible for as many people as possible. And there's really no more powerful or scaled vehicle to do that than soda. Plus, obviously it's the number one source of added sugar to the American diet, high rates of diabetes, metabolic disease. So it's also a really great place to help folks. So Olipop is simply the kind of the after a lot of learnings over a long period of time, because I really invented this category all the way back in 2010. My last beverage business, in a lot of ways, was the test kitchen for what ended up becoming the success of Olipop.
You recently raised $50 million. Talk to us about how you plan to utilize those funds to accelerate Olipop's growth, and how do you get to your current valuation? If you're able to talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was one of the reasons I was thrilled to partner with JP Morgan's growth fund on this. I think it's a great credibility signal. That's not the type of institution that just like puts together a valuation on a napkin and says this will do it. That was important to us. We don't want to be going for these unicorn style valuations without there being some sentiment in the market, without us being able to generate the sentiment in the market that this is like a fairly accomplished price. Look, they've been amazing partners in a lot of ways. The fact that we're a very mission-driven organization was actually a major selling point to them. And then the fact that it was a major selling point to them was actually a major selling point to us, that they were probably the right group to work with. Look, we are firmly in black territory. We were full year profitable last year. We're just adding actually to our EBITDA profile this year. PCM, we're also seeking to increase. Obviously, the tariffs will have some impact on exactly where that lands. So we didn't actually raise the capital because we needed it to actually operate the business. It was kind of the last tying of the bow, just finishing out our fundraising, knock on wood, for the entirety of our future. And we're going to use it on all the normal things that a business at our stage would. We've got a lot of marketing to invest in. We've got a lot of great headcount to invest in. There is some continued innovation and partnerships rolling through. So it's nothing super magic. It's just all the things that we're already doing and just making sure that we've got the war chest to scale them.
Yeah, you said the magic word to me as a finance reporter, the word tariffs. We're seeing it put a lot of downward pressure on the stock market overall. But in terms of those pressure points for Olipop, what does that look like? And how are you and your team strategizing, knowing that that could be increasingly a headwind for a lot of companies like yours?
Totally. Look, when the election results came in, how they came in at the back end of last year, of course, one of the first things that the supply chain and the finance departments did in conjunction with the leadership team was say, okay, well, what are the likely projections around tariffs? How do we account for those from a cost structure basis? So obviously there is some volatility attached to the situation that makes it somewhat difficult to truly plan for. But one of the nice things about where we are from a phasing standpoint is the fact that we're also continuously capturing a lot of economies of scale. So all that means is that okay, some of those economies that we would have captured anyway, depending on where tariffs exactly how they play out, they may not fully flow through to the extent that we had anticipated. But we've done enough preemptive planning around where tariffs are likely to play out that we don't have any current plans to raise prices on consumers, and we're still increasing our PCM and our EBITDA profiles. Underlying, I mean, this is one of the great pieces to building a sustainable P&L with some breathing room in it. It allows you to kind of roll with some of these external factors. So I still feel really great about where we're going as a where we're going as a brand and how our balance sheet looks.
Ben, it's incredible to look at just the number of people who not just give up alcohol for dry January, but are making it much more of a permanent part of their lifestyle. And so, with this rise of an increasingly health conscious consumer, how do you foresee the market for functional beverages like your own evolving, even over the next couple of years?
Yeah, totally. Look, I think that we've certainly, I think there was already an underlying trend. I've seen it in beverage, I've seen it in food, where there's an increasing number of brands that understand that accessibility is a really, really important part of health and wellness. And I think you are going to continue to see a drive towards health and wellness. I think, like the simple reality, CDC numbers, 40% of Americans have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. Their projection is that 1.3 billion people will have type 2 diabetes by 2050. That obviously creates a lot of suffering, that creates a lot of strain on the healthcare system, that creates a lot of strain on taxpayers. And a lot of people know, at least intuitively, that what they eat and consume is an important part of their health. And I think there's going to be a lot of demand for health and wellness, while also, I think, driving towards accessibility so that you don't have to go on some weird esoteric or elitist island in order to kind of capture some of that. What we're trying to really do is ensure that as that transition happens, that there's a standard around what constitutes adequate imperial validity for a health and wellness brand, right? So we have a partnership with Purdue. We finished digestive health research. We just finished our first human clinical trial looking at blood sugar stability, really, really positive results, and we're going to be publishing later this year. And we're flowing into even actually more human clinical trials. Some of those end up flowing through to the consumers and they understand what we're doing. Some of them are for different audiences, regulators, press, people who are really focused on health and wellness. So we've got this enormous opportunity because of our momentum and our visibility to say, hey, industry, awesome that you're all moving in this direction. Let's make sure that the customers are actually getting taken care of and they're not just getting sold the same old overpriced fairy dust, but they're actually getting sold something real that will transform their health.
Ben, what strategies have you and the team found to be most effective in terms of building brand awareness?
Yeah, look, I mean, having a really healthy media mix is super important. So, we were really early adopters of TikTok. We've obviously used influencer really mindfully. Actually, 70% of the kind of content creators we work with are first-time creators. So, finding a way to integrate with those online communities, but in a way that's more authentic, that kind of utilizes and resonates with more of kind of your everyday person versus getting to this weird, world where you're spending money with the same old folks that probably have too much inflow of money. And also, we've over the last 18 months started to do more big television ads, and what's useful about that, that's obviously a more expensive endeavor, but that starts to open up the demographics that you're speaking to. So we saw a 9 point awareness jump just in January, and we're because on the back of some of our TV advertising spend, seeing more kind of Gen X awareness versus obviously more of the Gen Z awareness that you typically get off of social media. So I think it's just about, look, we have an underlying product that really, really resonates with consumers. We've had triple digit growth since day one, since we've hit the shelves. That word of mouth and that resonance and is your most important driving force. And our whole conversion funnel is really, really healthy because as we capture more awareness, people then actually try the product and they actually have like a really good experience with it, especially compared to the, let's call it, lots of other players in the industry. So the funnel is healthy, and as long as we continue to make sure we're communicating against all the right buckets where we can reach these different groups of consumers, then we'll kind of do what we need to push that tent out.
Yeah, and since you mentioned, of course, there are a lot of other players in the space. M&A activity seems busy overall. How are you able to tune out any of the noise from competitors in the space and ultimately stay focused on your core product, your core mission, and increasing brand awareness for Olipop?
I mean, personally, I stay sane, and my team probably, this is probably a bad idea. I personally stay sane by like I'm not on much social media, so I just like I block that out for my own kind of health and wellness and my my dopamine levels. Look, I think that's always been how I've been really really wired. Like even a lot of the folks who've come into the space, they have this focus and this communication around prebiotics and around digestive health. What's funny for us is we landed on digestive health because we have 9 grams of fiber in our refrigerated product and 6 grams of fiber in our shelf stable product, and a lot of kind of empirical backing behind our formula and our claims. And so that was like a logical place for us to start. Now we're about to pivot into metabolic health in an enormous way. And when you are creators of the category, you're actually focused on a real mission. And then when you happen to get to sit in my seat, you're also the formulator, which means you get to take that direct responsibility for where you go next. You get to be the real, you are creating the vision for where this whole category gets to go. And that is truly what I stay focused on. Now, all that being said, you can't totally ignore what's happening in the world. And I think, we've now had a handful of major events in this category in this quarter. And to be honest with you, I am thrilled about all of them because what they're all sending the message of is that the largest players in beverage in all of human history agree that this is a mainstream category that they want to go capture market share of. It couldn't send a healthier signal about the future of this category. So look, it's an enormous honor to have gone from a place where it's an idea in your head to, the biggest players in the world all agree and they're moving in. So I obviously we track stuff like that, but there's a lot for us to stay focused on in terms of continuing to move that vision forward.
Yeah, congratulations on the enormity of the success of the brand to you and your whole team. That's Ben Goodwin. He is the CEO, co-founder, and the formulator. Got to make sure we mention that one because that's an awesome detail of Olipop. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, JD.